kind of resuming our discussion on the proposal, and we're going to start to, once we get through this level of the framework, kind of pause briefly on talking about proposal outlining and stuff like that, so that we can talk about some research ethics kind of stuff, things that are good to have in mind when you're heading out to the field, shortly, in some cases, and so forth. So that'll be some kind of traditional PowerPointy discussions for a couple of class sessions. And while that's happening in class, we'll take some time at the beginning or end of each class session to check in on the proposal writing, the outlining process at this point, and if there are any friction points or pain points with integrating sources or finding sources and bulking up the annotated bibliography and getting some of those things into your outline as it starts to come together. Then we'll just address those as we go. So please, this is a standing order to interrupt our class at any point when you have a question about the mechanics or the day-to-day workflow of putting together your proposal. Okay? Cool. That's one of the key reasons for this class in the first place. So if we're not addressing proposal writing stuff as it's coming up, then we need to change in that way. And also, again, like we talked about in our very first class session, if there is any sense that you're struggling with any part of this, like you're just not sure of something, or if some step in this process or workflow feels like it's a lot harder or more stressful than it should be, if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, like, man, I can't do this and everybody else around me is doing fine, what's wrong with me? Then I encourage you to have the wherewithal, the courage to just speak up. If you are struggling with anything in this process, others have probably struggled with it before. Somebody else is probably struggling alongside you and not speaking up about it yet. But things are a lot easier and much less of an energy spend, much less decisional energy spend when you have a chance to just talk about it and demystify it and sort of stab that imposter syndrome sense to death and be like, oh no, everybody else is in the same boat, it's all fine, it's all completely fine. All right, so with that huggy and warm fuzzy preamble, let's jump back into our outline. So we've got, at this point in your working outline, we're up to the point of we've got chapter headings, right? And we've talked a little bit about a whole bunch of more specific things inside of that. On the course website, were you guys able to see and download like the proposal template file? If you haven't done that yet, that's fine. It's not like due or anything, but I just want to make sure that that's visible. You sent me an email saying that there was a 404 link in there somewhere.
You had something about the annotated bib.
Yeah.
And then there was a link that said submit it here. That's
Okay.
the one that didn't work.
Yeah,
All right, I'll check that out.
do anything with the annotated bibliography.
Okay. The whole point of that courseware is to manage those links so they don't break. So something has gone fundamentally wrong. I'll check it out and see what's going on. Okay, so, sorry, you were saying about the annotated bib? I talked over you.
Oh no, I was just saying I couldn't find anywhere to put it on the website.
All right,
to
you're not
submit
crazy.
it.
Same thing, yeah. So, okay, yeah, I'll figure out what's going on there. It's just a courseware Dropbox to just upload it, so the link's broken somehow. Okay, moving on from that. So we have, with your, whether or not you even have any sense of what your proposal is going to be about, you still can sort of create the document and have chapter headings. And if you start using the styles like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, it'll automatically divide your document into logical sections and subsections and categorize them hierarchically. So as this gets bigger and bigger, you can use the navigation sidebar out of the View menu and set this as like top level heading 1, and and so forth, and it starts showing up in that list like we have on the templated file on the course website. So once you have chapter headings, the next obvious move is for section headings within each chapter. So within the front matter, that's the preface, the foreword. In the introduction or background chapter, that could be a heading, could be historic context and or spatial context, and or social or ecological context or physical whatever that needs to be. Problem statement is typically a heading at the end of the introduction or at the end of the literature review. Okay? So, with your proposal draft, as it hopefully exists up to the point of having chapter headings, the move now is to go ahead and, even if you don't know what your specific research question is and so forth in concert with your advisor yet, go ahead and start adding in the top level section headings within each chapter. Okay, and we've talked about the thesis template. You've seen all these before. None of this is new stuff. This is just one example, a little bit more specifically for one student's outline at this point. And we're one step beyond our section headings. We've got subsections. So within the site description, we've got subsections for soil, and one specific actual factoid, one cited level thing out of the annotated bibliography for the student was, okay, we are dealing with this particular research site. It's got an Alford silt loam primary soil type in these particular soil lenses across southern Illinois in the bluff country. For the statistical analyses, this person had talked just briefly with your advisor. They'd already had a chance to take the introductory graduate stats class. And so in the section of the methods chapter, section titled statistical analyses, and subsection titled univariate summary stats, this person knew that they were going to have to generate basic senses of central tendency, as they're called, like averages or means, trimean, arithmetic mean, geometric mean, median or mode or range, all different ways to sort of get at the center of mass of a whole bunch of numbers along some range or set. Okay? And then what's the standard deviation across those numbers in that same set? So that would be like bullet point level information instead of logical divisions and labels like chapter titles or chapter names, section titles, subsection titles or subheadings, and then the actual bullet point level info. So, to the extent that you have anything in your annotated bibliography and you think it's pretty useful, now is a good moment to, once you've got the higher level bullet points in, start dropping in just phrases, and it doesn't even have to be the full citation. We're not doing copy editing here. We're not doing any wordsmithing. We're just getting enough of a stub of information to point to what you're actually thinking there. So you know in your heart of hearts that it's Peoria Luss over Alfred Silt Loam out over a glacial clay hardpan, but it's enough to say for right now, you know, some weeks from now, we'll get that full level of detail. That'll be a sentence or two and the full actual citation. But for now, we just want to get the soil type filed in the right box called site description, and that's where it goes. And now you can stop thinking about it because it's on the page in your external brain. You don't need to remember it at that point. Okay? Cool. So, how are you guys and gals doing on your proposal outlines? How's it feeling so far? Do you feel like this move right here, as you're starting to bulk out that annotated bibliography, this step right here of starting to put in just little bullets, little chunks of information, honestly just phrases, nouns, does that feel like it's in reach right now, or is that still kind of far off? How you doing?
I'll have to sift through more stuff.
Okay, cool. Still got some reading to do?
Yeah.
Yep. that's going to be true for a while. Okay. Anybody else?
Is that outline, not the example one, but the other one,
Yeah.
says option 12 now?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah. Let's double check.
It's just a lot of words. I'm trying to find it.
Let's see what the course says. Got that two-factor authentication going. I hate that it's a hassle, but universities are a prime target for foreign nation states to plunder for information. This is why we can't have nice things, guys. Okay. In the primary task, outline thesis proposal section headings. So, the content link up above, this is the desktop view. It may look a little bit different on mobile, but everybody's got a laptop. The content section holds all the files for the course, organized logically into folders or directories or lessons or units, or whatever. And so here's the breadcrumb trail for getting to the thesis template and so forth. It's the proposal writing unit, the introduction to writing your thesis proposal in this class lesson inside of that unit, and then from there, individual files. So the YouTube video features the template that we used last week to show examples of all the different chapter names and section titles or headings and subheadings and all that stuff, without getting to the actual bullet point level stuff of like Alfred Silt Loam, such and such 2021. So it's visible in this video file. You can download it for offline viewing or stream it on YouTube. You do you. Here are some older versions, both video and audio from previous years, if that helps you. It's all the same stuff, explained mostly the same way with slightly different examples. So if you like to hear kind of triangulating things, all talking about the same thing from slightly different angles, use those. If not, that's fine. All of this is optional. And then the text right here is more or less-ish a one-to-one recreation of that template file. And I bet this link is broken too. But, yeah, that's a thing. Let's see. The actual template file should be in that space. So let's go manually navigate to it. Go to the thesis template files and walkthrough unit. And we've got a templated example, another templated example using specifically Microsoft Word to enforce that syntactic hierarchy of chapter titles, headings, subheadings, content level bullets, and so forth. A couple of examples of that. And then if you click on the very top one, detailed outline format for theses or dissertations, that will bring up a web view of the document, and then from there, hopefully you should be able to download that and use it. So there's several different ways to access these templates.
Is that where it's only in PDF?
Okay.
I don't know if you can save it not as PDF.
All right. Let me just go ahead and...
Yeah.
Mine's in the Word doc. Where'd you find it? It's on there, but I don't know if it's that lets me use it as a Word doc. Yeah, when I downloaded it, it was PDF.
Okay. Let's see. Copy that and downloads.
I downloaded using this output instead of this download. That's a Word doc.
Alright,
See if
we
it
figured
works.
it out.
That says a Word document? Cool.
Press the wrong download button.
Okay, got it. Let me go ahead and add that link to the announcement so you don't have to drill down into content to find it. That will definitely be more helpful there. Okay. Alrighty, so content, navigate back through, thesis template files and walkthrough, detailed outline format for thesis or dissertation. 2022, it's the same thing in 2023 so far, so there's that. There you go. So you are welcome to modify that document and just plug your info into it. That is a very safe way to keep formatting and stuff that you don't want to have to deal with later, and not have to wrangle that. If you are more the kind of person that you want to create a blank document and do it yourself entirely fresh, so that you get the sense of, okay, so when I create front matter is not a chapter, but it's logically like a chapter, so we'd give that kind of a heading 1 kind of a thing. And here it showed up in that sidebar for navigation purposes. You're totally free to do this approach as well. It's a little bit more work, but the benefit of creating your own document, and you have the legitimate choice either way to do this or not, is that you get a little bit more practice with these tools instead of just receiving the templated file already all set up for you. So if you're pretty sure you're going to use Microsoft Word fairly lightly in your professional career as just an occasional necessary evil, use the already set up template file. If this is something where you know you're going to be writing all kinds of research papers and grant proposals and whatever else, and you need to be more conversant in the skills of creating the hierarchy instead of just using a template over and over. So this would be a heading level 1 as a chapter title. This would be a heading level 2 for a section or heading. So we go find the heading 2 style in here. Thesis chapter heading 2, chapter heading 3, and so forth. And there you go. So in SIU's template, chapter names, the title of the chapter, introduction, background, literature review, methods. That has to be all caps, centered, this size, this font, and so forth. So that's already predefined on my version of Word, because I have to do this over and over. You can play around with modifying styles to be what you need them to be. Okay, so right click or alt click, depending on your operating system, and do that on the actual chip or preview of the theme that you want, or excuse me, the style, not the theme, that you need to modify, and play around with modifying it. If computers don't go well for you, like you're doing something and then it just reboots on you, or you're doing something and then all of a sudden everything's messed up and you have no idea how you got there, be careful with modifying themes. That is one way to make things harder or worse if you're not careful. But if you're fairly conversant with computers, or think that you need to become fairly conversant, modifying format styles is very, very, very powerful and efficient. Very, very powerful and efficient. Okay, cool. So either way works. And at this point, let's see if we can't move from chapter titles to section titles to subsections and into actual content. So within the foreword, maybe this content note to yourself would just be letter by Dr. Advisor name written on your behalf, and you just copy and paste it in there. Cool. Now you don't have to think about anything else in the foreword because you've already got your note to yourself in there. Okay. So for Tuesday's class, see if you can get a template up to this level with or without this structural formatting and stuff like that. But even just a simpler bulleted list, all the rest of this document is just a plain text outline format. Like, this is not the time to be worrying a whole lot about formatting. But if you want to start learning about that, that's a good thing to do. Now's a good time to do that. If you just want to get through and have your proposal with the minimum amount of work because you're busy with everything else and you're working your butt off already, plain outline like this is totally fine. Okay? So you don't even need the template file off the website to do that. Any questions about the thesis proposal outlining at this stage? Up to the first couple of bullet points of content is the goal. It's good. Cool. Any concerns about it? It's okay to be honest. Like, I still got a bunch of reading to do. Park, is it okay if I have like 0 to 3 bullet points of content stuff, like the Alfred Loam detail, whatever little factoid, or something specific like, I'm going to be running t-tests. If I'm not quite there yet, is that okay? Yes, that's okay. Any concerns, questions about this stuff? No? Good. I know we've gone through outlining like over and over, but each time we get a little bit further, so that's cool. All right. If you do have any questions or run into any technical hiccups or whatever, ask as soon as those come up. That's totally fine to do. So you can start if you want to the extent that you have multiple bullet points of actual info to put in with or without citation info. You can start with broad general, meso or medium scale, and then so caged animal feeding operations, and then use or overuse of antibiotics. There's more specific detail inside of that, so that comes after the definition. If you're just not to that point yet, that's okay. Let this be, if you need to, just a bucket to start getting any thoughts and info in. And before this becomes sentences, it's real quick and easy to rearrange the order of things or the location of things across the larger hierarchy. No problem. It's low stress to do that at this stage, so this is the right time to just dump stuff in. Let it be a big bucket for now. Okay? Cool. All right. Let's switch over to checking in on the annotated bibliography, the lit review. There's more reading going on. That will be true for a while. It's not at all uncommon or weird or embarrassing to still be reading more citations, even on rainy days out in the field. So when I did research out at national parks in Maine and New Hampshire and Colorado and stuff like that, some days we got rained out, the field work, and so those were days to just curl up on the couch and sleep in a little bit and read a whole bunch of journal articles that we printed out at the ranger station nearby. Not just to have something to do, there's always a million things to do, but it was a good chance to have the energy to read those documents closely. You know, we talked about how you just scan through real fast, maybe just read the abstract at first, make a decision there, do I drill deeper or not, and then into the first sentence of each section or each paragraph, drill deeper, decide to or not, and then read the whole thing through fully for deep comprehension and reflection as a kind of a third pass through. Rainy days are real nice for that. So That can be kind of a thing. With your annotated bibliography, how's that going? Are you guys still finding tons of stuff? Are you in like the gathering, the sorting, the reading and processing, or the copy-paste into outline phase of this process with the annotated bibliography?
My advisor gave me like one of those examples, you know how you show the example where it's like a annotated bibliography like compiled together, and it was like, here, try to use some of these. So I'm going through that right now.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, for some of them, just glance through, good enough. For the ones that are really valuable, the ones that you'll eventually, look up like the whole paper for yourself and stuff like that. Some students, not all, but some students have found some value in not copy pasting from somebody else's annotated bibliography to yours. That doesn't, it gets the information transferred from one document to the other, but not by way of your brain, So you have, and we'll develop a pretty quick sense of, is this one that I need to process and like restate what's important for me? Or do I just copy paste it in because this is already perfect and I already kind of know this one because I actually glanced at this paper a semester ago? Whatever. The Montessori method of information processing, Maria Montessori started a whole system of schools. Is kind of a huge person in the field of education design. She would learn school information by hand recopying textbooks word for word. And that works very, very well. Maybe we don't have time to hand rewrite interesting journal articles, but to the extent that you can have your brain actually processing the much smaller set of papers that are critical to your study, definitely do that instead of just copy pasting, a one line out of it from the PDF into your annotated bib. Only if it's an important paper, though. Okay. All right. Sounds like the annotated bibliography is going okay. Have you guys and gals wrestled with doing like citation searches like on Google Scholar, but also looking at what cites that? So forward and reverse citation searches, as they're called.
I've been doing what the paper cites.
Okay.
Kind of falling into a trap of daisy chaining and all of that.
Okay. That's normal.
I've never looked at like what cites the paper that I'm reading.
Okay, so this is a really useful thing. On your laptop, go ahead and pull up your browser window, and let's go to scholar.google.com is one quick. They all scholarly search engines do forward and reverse citation searches, or graph analysis, linking what it cited and what cites it is another way to say that. So let's see. I'll click on this first citation as a suggestion, and within this paper they cited a bunch of stuff, right? And some hopefully small subset of what they cited is useful and interesting to you, so you go chase those down too. Down in the works cited section. Oh, Wade Vegas, Bob Powell. Nice. These are cool people. Anyway, so you find the backward citation, their source, and maybe it's got one or a couple sources, and all the way back to the very first writing in cuneiform, and at that point can't go back any further. The other way to get after this with any of these search engines, let's see, go back to it. Is to look for, let's see, there we go, sexism in English structural morphology. We'll focus on the technique, not the content area, because this has nothing to do with forest hydrology or wildlife. Excellent. Okay. So you've got the PDF And the PDF lists everything in its works cited or its literature review, everything that it's referencing. You can also click this link, bless you. So this is the other way. What papers cited the one that you're looking at? And that is just one click away. And these, by definition, are newer, they're fresher than the paper that you are looking at. So, in one sense, it may be awesome. So if you've got paper X and you go to its literature review on 4 of its sources, they're all going to be older, right? So this is a 2020 piece, and this is a pretty central study to what you're working on. Like this is going to help you a lot to know this study inside and out. And it relied heavily on 4 previous studies. Let's say all 4 of these previous studies happen to be from 2018. Then you go on the forward references of what cited the paper that you're interested in. These are all 2021, 2022, 2023. So paper Y, Z, and alpha as we run out of letters in the alphabet. These are super fresh, and a few of them may be pretty likely to have good, detailed, super useful elaborations on. Like if this is a useful study, one or a few of these might be even more useful. Like they took the technique that sounds perfect for your study, described in paper X, and they provided a crucial little bit of extra detail to clarify something that you weren't real sure about in this super important study. That's an awesome, super valuable find. The only problem with some of these forward reference studies is that they're not all necessarily going in the same conceptual direction as yours is. So eventually, yours is going to be a forward reference that back references super important paper X. This is you, paper J. Let's say that paper Y is also very much in the direction of your paper and is that super helpful extra elaboration on this. Z and alpha maybe take the study, the discussion, the clue train that they're aboard in a different direction. So don't feel like you have to figure out why all of these other studies are back referencing the hugely important study that you are about to back reference. All right? A very common thing is like the sort of divergence of things through some critical point. All of these were going in different directions from the things that they back referenced, and all of them happen to forward reference in the direction of this that's useful for you. So all this super complicated graph theory discussion aside, use forward and back references, especially if somebody on your committee says, man, you're doing good work here, none of the stuff that you're referencing is wrong, it's just that your most recent citation is from 2011. Like, that's fine. The reality hasn't shifted dramatically since 2011, but also there's been a lot that's happened in the last dozen years that, I don't have any sense that you're aware of. So if you get feedback from a committee member or from your advisor, or you're just looking through your works cited list or your annotated bibliography and everything's kind of stale, hit the what cites this link in Google Scholar or Web of Science or whichever engine you're using at the moment. And this will provide some pretty quick forward jumps in time. Another way to enforce that part specifically, the freshness of a citation, is Google really is great about surfacing this control. You just hit the Since 2022 link, and it'll filter down what cited that paper and was also published 2022 or newer in this particular example. Okay, so with lots of coffee and a single afternoon in any of these citation search engines, you can build a pretty big shopping list of stuff to read through very quickly. And since we're on campus on the network, just another reminder, you're going to see a lot more PDF links for everything that's paywalled, like Elsevier and stuff like that. They're going to charge you $80 an article. Is not uncommon at all. You don't have to pay any of that because the university is already paying for all of it if you're on the on-campus network. So very helpful. Okay. Cool. So hopefully that helps with the question on or the observation on I'm finding things and then finding this tendency to daisy chain backward. Let me add to your stress. You can daisy chain forward too. Okay. But usually the forward links are relatively short daisy chains because there's a hard cutoff on how far forward you can come up to the present. So that's okay. There you go. So far so good? All right, cool. We've got about 10 minutes left. That's not really enough time to jump into all of this ethics stuff, so why don't we save that for Tuesday? And instead, just kind of low-key wrap up. I'm here for questions. If you'd like a demonstration on anything specific in Word, for example, now's a great moment to nail that in. And we're recording the screen here too, so we'll have that added to the website here in a bit once it's all transcoded and uploaded and everything. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, you're clear for takeoff. Have a nice 10-minute longer lunch.
Whenever you're changing the style, do you have to create your own format to how you have it, where it's like the capital letters?
No.
Or is that something already?
That is on this document, since I've already done this, and this is like saved in my Word or my Microsoft account, it's already done. But let's go through this kind of soup to nuts and set up our own style as we go. All right, so let's say we want, all right, so the front matter is a whole bunch of chapter level things. So this is like a super chapter. That is outline level 1. This preface is a chapter level formatted style. Underneath that, we would have stuff that's formatted to the left-hand side, not centered, and progressively smaller, progressively less boldface, stuff like that. So let's say that we'll do the forward as another thesis chapter level 2. All right. And then let's say letter by Dr. Advisor name is not a bullet level content thing, but a heading within forward. So that would be a thesis chapter as I've previously defined it, heading 3. I know this text is super small to see, but it left justifies it. It sets this font, this size, which is a little bit bigger than normal, and so on and so forth. Okay, so how do we get these things? If you go into the Format menu on Mac, or correspondingly on Windows, and go to the Style menu item, that brings up this whole window, which allows you to select, modify, and create styles. So I'm just going to hit the New button, which is in the bottom center of this dialog window, as it's called, for me on Mac. And I'm going to call this, let's see, thesis subhead. Good enough. All right. The style type is going to be paragraph. So you're going to apply this to blocks of text. Now, thesis headings, subheadings, chapter titles, they're not really paragraphs, but they could be as big as paragraphs in some weird reality where your chapter title is like 80 words long. All right, so instead of a character style or a linked paragraph and character style, it's not a table style, it's not a list style, it's just a paragraph style. That's the basic one. We want to do style based on normal. And it's going to set, when you choose normal, all the stuff like the font, the size, the line spacing, left, center, or right justified, and so forth. Let's say we want this to be center justified. We want the style for the following paragraph to be not another subhead, so we don't want to select this. We want it to just be regular text. So back to normal. And then let's say we want this to be double spaced as a heading. We want a little bit of white space between it and its following thing. We want it to be bold, and because it's a heading or a subheading, instead of normal 12-point font, let's make it 18 size text, and not Calibri. We'll go Zapfino. We'll get super bougie with this one. All right. From here, there's a little drop-down box, at least on the Macintosh version of Word, or the Apple version of Word. You generally want to go into the paragraph option in that format list down at the bottom. And that lets you do things like, do I want to indent this? No, it's a heading. I want it to be left justified, flush left. You can do a hanging indent if you're defining like a citation style where the first line is up against the left and then subsequent lines are indented. That's the reverse of a typical paragraph where the first line is indented to show the start of the paragraph, and so forth. We've already said it was double spaced. This is a heading, so I'm going to say give me 24 points of white space before this line. So it's like double spacing or triple spacing before it, whereas double spacing within this style is already defined. After the end of this style, let's do something absurd so we can see what it is. 42 points of white space after this, and then we hit OK. And hit OK. This will now create the style thesis subhead, and I'll apply it as well in this case. Cool. So now I've got 24 points of white space before this one, so it sets off this huge thing. Otherwise, this forward line would be right on top of it, and that gets pretty crowded pretty fast. So lots of white space is usually good before things like headings. And then we've got, if you recall, even more white space afterwards. 42 points of white space between this heading and what would normally be its paragraph content afterwards. Okay? So you can play with those numbers. Obviously, my numbers here are absurd, so they're easy to see when applying this style. And you can see if the window is maximized, in this home ribbon, the style has its own little preview there, and if you right or alt click on that and go to modify, it brings you right back to that dialog, and you can fine tune this and so forth. Okay? But for heading styles, make sure one of the most important things is just the style for the following paragraph. Set that to normal. You can create a new paragraph style called, so I'll go back to the style menu, or excuse me, the format menu, go to the style menu item. I'll hit a new one, and what I found very, very helpful over the years is to create a regular just paragraph like the text. Create a new style and don't call that one normal. Call it like thesis proposal normal or something like that, and then set that as the style for each, as the following paragraph for each of the subheadings and headings and chapter titles and all of that stuff. So when you hit enter after any of those heading things, it automatically goes into this special thesis body text, or whatever you want to call it. It's a paragraph style. style is based on normal but is not normal. A lot of the styles that are already built in are based on normal. If you change normal, it will change all of those other styles. They inherit changes that you make from the ancestor style. So, for thesis body text, the style for the following paragraph, I'll have to hit OK and then come back into this and change the style for the following paragraph after creating thesis body text. Set that to thesis body text as well, and it'll keep you in that. One reason that it's really useful to create a thesis paragraph or body text normal style is that one of the things you can do when you right-click on the preview is to select all instances of that style, and you can modify the entire document. When I'm editing somebody's dissertation, if they've done this, and I need to indent all of the body text by something for some reason, I can just select all the paragraphs of their actual text automatically with that one right click and update an entire 500-page dissertation. It takes a minute or two. Update the style for that, and it automatically applies to all of that, just that paragraph text. So by creating a normal or default text style for just the regular paragraph prose of your thesis proposal and eventually of your thesis itself, you can make later changes very safely, very efficiently by modifying the style instead of updating each one of these paragraphs one after the other. That takes hours and you never get that time back. Okay? Cool. So, now we're definitely out of time. But if you have any other questions, I'm here. Whatever you need. Okay. And we can come back to this. I know seeing somebody do this one time is not particularly useful. Play around with it in a fresh document and try some things out. You're not going to hurt anything. And we'll see you on Tuesday. All right.
Is there a way to set the style so that they exist in Word when you open a blank document?
Yes.